What's up, everyone? Members of the Faith of the Seven worship the Seven who are actually one, a single deity with 7 aspects or faces, each representing a different virtue. The less educated, or the simple-minded as I like to call them, may believe that there are 7 different gods, when in fact, worshippers pray to 7 aspects of one person who is actually portraying different sides in which they can ask for help and guidance depending upon which different things they need. These aspects are as follows: the Father, representing judgment; the Mother, representing motherhood and nurturing nature; Warrior, representing strength in battle; the Maiden, representing innocence and chastity; the Smith, representing crafts and labor; the Crone, representing wisdom; and the Stranger, representing death and the unknown. Traveling on over across the narrow sea, R'hllor, or alternatively known as the Lord of Light, is a deity widely worshipped on the continent of Essos. The Lord of Light has been described as a fire god, and its clergy are known as fire priests or fire priestesses. His worship centers around fire and light. He is also known as the Red God, the Heart of Fire, and the God of Flame and Shadow. The faith of the Lord of the Light is the majority religion in several of the free cities and extends its reach all the way east to Ahai. Worship of the Lord of the Light is pretty much unheard of, at this point anyway in our story, in Westeros. Now, this is pretty interesting. This quote comes from the great Melisandre. The God of Light actually consists of, this is just a little precursor before we go into that, but the God of Light actually consists of 2 different gods. And Melisandre says one is a god of light and love and joy, and one is a god of darkness, evil, fear, and they are eternally at war. The old gods of the forest, or simply put, the old gods, are actually a collection of innumerable and unnamed spirits of nature. That means they have a lot, which are worshipped by many people of the north in small numbers elsewhere scattered throughout Westeros. It was once the chief religion of Westeros until those godforsaken Andals came over and brought the Faith of the Seven. Now, the Faith of the Seven is actually the dominant faith on the continent of Westeros. These 2 religions have coexisted for more than 6,000 years, and there's still tension between the most devout adherents of the 2 faiths. The old gods were originally worshipped by the children of the forest, these non-human... Well, I guess they're humanoid creatures, or these are actually the original inhabitants of Westeros, along with giants and many other marvelous creatures that we will probably never get to see on the TV show for thousands of years before the arrival of the First Men. The First Men actually came from the east about 12,000 years ago, and it was the children of the forest who actually carved these faces into the weirwood trees. The children and their priests, or, we have a human version of the priests on the show, the Green Seers, successfully fought the First Men to a standstill, and until they signed a pact of mutual peace and cooperation. Thanks to a wonderful subscriber named Phillip Wright, he actually left a comment on one of my last videos about how he had heard a theory on none other than Smokescreen, aka Chris, during one of his live streams, in which he kind of formulated a theory out of midair that basically there will be 7 main characters who will represent 7 members of the Faith of the Seven, and they will be left over at the very end to help rebuild Westeros after the War for the Dawn. Now, this had my brain light up like one of those crazy-ass, I don't know, you could say when a crackhead sees crack. We'll just say that. That makes the most sense. But in this video, I actually want to discuss how I think every religion that's in Planetos right now, or all the major religions that we know about on the show at least, will actually represent all of the cast members who will be left over at the end of the War for Dawn. Each one of them representing a different faith and religion in Westeros. Now, before we get our hands dirty with this theory, if you will, I would like to ask you all for a major favor, and that is if you could simply slap a like on this video. It helps my channel out immensely in promoting my videos and my content, ultimately reaching my goal of 10,000 subscribers, and once I do, I will be giving away a lovely Dark Horse Daenerys figurine. All you have to do to enter that contest is like this video, comment down below, hop on Twitter and follow me, and hop on Instagram and follow me. Both of those links will be in the description as well as somewhere throughout this video. Real quick, I want to give a super special shout out to Morgan. I know your birthday is not till the 10th, and that's like a week from now, but I just want to say happy birthday. You're 22. That was my best Taylor Swift impression. I'm sorry. But now, on with the video. Starting off with House Stark, I want to actually list which member I think represents which faith of the seven. And I know that's not their actual religion, as they are a northern family, and they likely worship the old gods, which they do. We know they do. We see them praying to weirwood trees multiple times. But they just more kind of fit the faith of the seven, or the seven different aspects of the one individual who represents the faith of the seven, in which you can pray for in times of need. All right, so starting off with Jon Snow. I think Jon is actually the warrior. He is, if anything, epitomizes strength in battle. Lots of people actually do pray for him for courage and victory. He carries a sword, which is, those are two things that are in the description of the warrior for the Faith of the Seven, which that's pretty much one of the things Jon's known for is his Valyrian steel sword. And he, like I just used this word, but he definitely epitomizes courage and victory. Next up is the mother, and this is actually a deceased member of House Stark, which she's actually a member of House Tully, which would make her a practicer, or her house actually worships the Faith of the Seven, so she kind of fits this even more. And honestly, let's give it up. The show's kind of hinted at this when we see her back in, I believe, what is this, season 3. Correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong, but she's actually making a sort of like an idol for the mother, who she actually represents, in my opinion, for Bran and Rickon. So Catelyn Stark definitely is, she's the mother of all of our favorite characters until they die. And that's kind of what she's known for. She's very nurturing. A lot of people can argue with me and say, hey, well, Cersei is actually known for loving her children, and that's hinted multiple times. Yes, Cersei loves her children, but where did she end up, okay? She ended up insane, and the Queen of Thorns in the Queen of Thrones. She's not the Queen of Thorns. That's kind of like a load of crock shit, in my opinion. At least the show version of Cersei, she at a time loved her children, but she's turned into this raging villainous bitch, and she's not exactly, let's say I wouldn't pray for her for compassion or fertility, for that matter. She is pretty fertile, though, I guess. I wouldn't say she would be depicted as smiling with love, embodying the concept of mercy. That's actually the opposite of her character. So, yeah, I just had an argument with myself. Catelyn Stark represents the mother. Next up is Arya, and honestly, this is my favorite comparison because she fits this role like a fucking glove. Arya represents the stranger, or death, and the unknown. Reason being is because people who pray to this god are rarely praying to this god to ask it for a favor. Usually it's the outcasts of society who align themselves with this god. And what is Arya if not an outcast? She's a highborn lady who rolls around in the mud with the boys, carries a sword, and wants to stab motherfuckers up all the time. She is literally the embodiment of death and the unknown. Not to mention she is a faithless man who, guess what? They worship the stranger, and look, I'm going to go ahead and say Arya is a faceless man, and she represents the stranger. Now, this one's kind of a loose fit, but that's going to be Sansa, and she will represent the maiden, and the maiden actually embodies everything about innocence and chastity. The definition of chastity is actually to the state of practice or refraining from extramarital affairs, or especially from any and all types of sexual intercourse, which honestly Sansa was taken advantage of, and that was one of the defining moments for her character, kind of where she stopped putting up with everyone's shit. But other than that, she's always been, sort of like a lady, the embodiment of what it means to be a highborn lady of the North. Next up is the crone, and that actually represents wisdom. And the crone is actually an old woman who carries a lantern and is prayed to for guidance. Everyone's probably like, all right, so you're sticking with House Stark. They have to be a member of House Stark. Nope, not for this one. The crone, in my opinion, is Old Nan. I don't know about you guys, but I pray to her for guidance when I'm looking for the next awesome thing that might premiere in the next season of Game of Thrones. I look and I go back and I listen to all of her old stories that she used to tell Bran, because she is the crone. Last but not least is the father, and that's going to be none other than your boy Ned Stark. The father is basically judgment. He's actually predicted as a bearded man who carries scales and is prayed for by justice. Now, Ned Stark has a famous quote that Harthy plays at the beginning of all of his videos, and he basically is talking about swinging the sword, which is carrying out judgment. Ned Stark is an honorable man, and someone who carries around scales and is always judging someone fairly is definitely going to be an honorable person. Next up is the Smith, and the same case applies here that applied to Old Man representing Crone. Now, I think that Gendry is a perfect representation of the Smith. It's stated that the Smith actually carries a hammer and is known for crafting things. Now, Gendry has been a blacksmith his whole life. And if you would like a video detailing on why I think Gendry is going to be vital to House Stark in Season 7, you can actually click up here. I just did a video on it yesterday. Now, Bran technically could have been portrayed as the Crone because he is going to become all-knowing, therefore he will be wise. But I honestly think that Bran actually represents all of the many and innumerable spirits of nature which are worshipped by the people of the North, basically the old gods. I think Bran is a representation of that. Reason being is because when you read further into it, these priests from the Children of the Forest, who are basically the people who first started practicing that religion, their priests are green seers. And what is Bran? Bran is a green seer. Bran is the new blood raven. Bran represents the old gods in this story. Now, wrapping this video up, we find ourselves with the religion that's kind of like on the outcast right now, because no one in Westeros, or very few people anyway, we got our Beric Dondarrions and our Thoros of Myr, who actually was sent to help spread the religion or help Robert Baratheon practice it. He was supposed to do all this great shit, but come to find out, Thoros of Myr is a drunk. But anyway, we find ourselves at the Lord of Light. So this is actually interesting because this is probably one of the closest religions we get to like modern day, and I don't want to offend anyone right now, but modern day like Christianity and Catholicism, and those are the only religions that I'm 100% sure that I can say, fuck, I've already gone too far down that rabbit hole. So for the choice of the Lord of the Light, it was interesting. It's two people, I guess, that I should pick, but I actually, throughout my research, I think it's Daenerys. There's a saying that goes, every time a Targaryen is born, a coin is flipped, and it's kind of like a 50-50 chance of whether they'll be batshit insane or relatively normal like the rest of the crazy-ass savages that live in Westeros. So with that being said, Daenerys kind of has shown glimpses of her dark side, but more her light side, and she has 3 dragons, so she definitely fits the Fire Lord aspect of it, and she's relatively joyful, and she can say she's the embodiment of light because she's freed slaves, and slavery kind of ravages Essos, at this point in our story. So with that being said, it's interesting because the followers of the Lord of the Light, they actually are pretty hardcore, and they're fanatical. We see how Melisandre is straight up like, hey, Stannis, that person sneezed in the room when I was reading from the holy text. Let's burn his ass. They actually think that all other religions are false, including the old gods of the Forest, the Faith of the Seven, and the drowned gods, etc. They're all demons and, quote, false idols that need to be cast down, and guess what? Not hosed down with water, but burned. So, how does Daenerys sound in like one of my favorite little like teaser trailers from last season? She's talking about how the great houses of Westeros are like a wheel. This one's on top, and that one's on top, and that one's on top, and this one's on top. She says she wants to break that wheel. So that sounds like, the followers of the Lord of the Light thinking that anyone who opposes anyone that has like different beliefs than them need to be destroyed. So that kind of relates to Daenerys' character and how she wants to take out all of the houses who oppose her in Westeros. I want to thank you all so much for watching. The like goal for this video will be 175. If you would like to enter my contest for the Daenerys Dark Horse figurine, all you have to do is like this video, comment down below, subscribe to me here on YouTube, then hop on Twitter and Instagram and follow me. My name's Mark, and I've actually started a GoFundMe for the upcoming Con of Thrones in Nashville, Tennessee, and if you would like to show your support, all you have to do is click on the link up here. My name's Mark, once again, and this has been Sir Hunt's Reviews.